Hello and welcome to this team report today. I will break down the team I used in Stockholm to win the whole event with. You can find the paste and the rental in the description below, and I would say we should start right into it. Before I start though, there will be nothing fancy on the screen. I will do no crazy edits, so you can just listen to it while you do something else, but I hope you give it a watch because you can learn a ton team building wise. But yeah, so why did I decide to run Hard Trick Room even though I've never really played Hard Trick Room? So 3 weeks before the tournament, I was playing a Limitless tournament and I've been using Hard Trick Room there and I won the entire thing undefeated. And I also used Hard Trick Room in the MPA and it just felt really strong. And then 3 weeks before Stockholm, I decided, okay, I just want to use a team that doesn't take ages as well, because I was just going to Stockholm to cheer on my friends and help them get their best results. So I did not want to play a team where I sit 1 hour per round just trying to play the game. And that's why I decided to not run Zamazenta or like Screamtail Terrapagos balance. I've been really wanting to use a very offensive team, but I did not like Hyper Offense Kyogre because you can miss your moves. Hyper Offense Shadow Rider is not great into the meta, I felt like, and that's why I settled on Hard Trick Room. And in the beginning, I had a 6 of Calyrex-Ice, Indeedee, Smeargle, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Urshifu, and Torkoal. And as you can hear, I had 5 of the same 6 Pokemon you can see on the screen. I decided to drop the Cornerstone after I saw what Brian Collins used in the Vancouver Regionals. Huge shout out to Brian for helping me and my friends to get some lines and also talk about Hard Trick Room in general, because in the beginning I felt a little bit lost, but due to his help I was able to understand it a little more. And today I want to tell you why I ran Safety Goggles Bolt as well as Max Speed Smeargle or Walkie Helmet Indeedee. But let's start with a restricted Calyrex-Ice. So Calyrex-Ice is just really strong and a really good Pokemon to set up Trick Room, because with Calyrex-Ice you can set up the Trick Room every single game if you want to. And we were running a min speed Calyrex. There were 2 reasons for it. We wanted to make sure that we underspeed the Incineroar, because min speed Incineroar is a little annoying if we set up Trick Room. And if we don't set up Trick Room, we have, for example, Smeargle, which can outspeed the Incineroar. But if we want to set up Trick Room, we want to outspeed the Incin with our Calyrex, and that's why we ran min speed. It also helps into the Arubega team, the one with Iron Hands, Miraidon, Farigiraf, Ogerpon Harflame, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Whimsicott. Because the Iron Hands on that team is also min speed. Your plan is not to set up Trick Room as soon as possible. Your plan should be to go for 1 or 2 Glacial Lances first, but once you set up the Trick Room, you really want to outspeed the Iron Hands, and that's why we ran min speed on Calyrex-Ice. I was not running Max Attack because I saw that the special defense can get some really nice calcs. Electro Drift from Miraidon gets a way better roll. I think Modest Max Special Attack has a 50% chance to KO, while Timid has no chance to KO us. Life Orb Astral Barrage from Shadow Rider has a 12% chance to KO us. Same thing with +2 Life Orb, but Terra Fire Calyrex. Also, Choice Specs Helping Hand, Astral Barrage does not KO Calyrex, and the most important thing actually was to survive a Meteor Beam from Lunala. The roll without investment would have been 37%, but now it's just a 6% chance. I know it's not 0, but you can never get to 0 because there are always crits involved. But I felt like the Lunala Taunt Urshifu matchup is kinda unplayable if you don't survive a Meteor Beam with Calyrex. And that's why we went 60 special defense. We still have enough attack with 196 to get a lot of KOs that people were not prepared for. For example, +2 Glacial Lance into Ogre upon half-lane with a lot of physical defense, +2 close combat into Urshifu Rapid Strike, +1 close combat into Incineroar. And that's why we also went close combat. We wanted to hit Incineroar for more damage and also be able to threaten Terrapagos a little more. And Urshifu dies either after a Decorate, or if we get Rocky Helmet 3 times with Indeedee, for example, they also drop to 50%, and then close combat is able to pick up Urshifu, which is very sweet. Also, close combat helps against Imprison Ice Rider. Otherwise, your Calyrex cannot do anything, but if they go for Imprison, you can still go for something like Decorate close combat and still do a decent chunk. So your Calyrex is not useless if your opponent runs Imprison Calyrex themselves. I think none of my friends played against Imprison Ice Rider, but since we also locked the team for the Global Challenge, it made sense because the Global Challenge probably is a lot where you will see a lot of Imprison Calyrex, so close combat was just really nice helping out there as well. And 196 element in general is just so nice because as I mentioned before, people will just calc for 116 element Calyrex-Ice nowadays, and suddenly you get KOs that your opponent just does not expect. And I would say every single bit of damage matters with Calyrex-Ice, and I could understand if you want to run max speed, not max speed, max attack on Calyrex-Ice, but trust me, the special defense came into play way more often than you think. So that's the best Calyrex-Ice spread. We went Terra Fire because with Terra Fire you can shut down Incineroar completely. They cannot burn you anymore. You can get around the water weakness with the sun, with Torkoal, and Terra Fire is also just really nice into Chi-Yu Fluttermane or Chi-Yu Shadow Rider, because otherwise if you run Terra Fairy, for example, they just click Astral Barrage Heatwave and you lose. Same thing if you run something like Terra Grass. Terra Water is a possible Terra you can play, but with Terra Fire, you also resist something like Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam from the Rhydon, and Terra Fire just felt better overall because you also make sure to resist grass type attacks from something like Rillaboom, because many opponents see Indeedee and they automatically bring Rillaboom, and if we had a Terra Water Calyrex-Ice and we are forced to Terra early, Rillaboom actually gets a little out of hand, and that's why Terra Fire was just really, really good across the board. And I would not change with Terra type if I were you. You could consider Terra Poison, but with Terra Poison you are always weak to Shadow Rider, which is not the greatest option. So I think overall the Calyrex-Ice was just really good to set up multiple Trick Rooms during one game, or sometimes it was just not Trick Room because the team could also just play like Glacial Lance, follow me, Glacial Lance, follow me, Glacial Lance, follow me, and you win. It sounds stupid, but it worked. And that's what makes double follow me plus Calyrex-Ice so good. So let's talk about the first follow me user, Indeedee. Why did I use 96 speed Indeedee, Terra Fairy, Rocky Helmet, when Brian originally ran Terra Dragon Psychic Seed Indeedee? So I used Indeedee in a way different way than most other hard Trick Room players, because a lot of hard Trick Room players probably just lead Indeedee Calyrex-Ice and just click follow me Trick Room and then play it from there. When I just want to set up follow me Trick Room, then I lead with Smeargle, because a lot of teams have both Incineroar and Rillaboom on it. And that's why I use the Indeedee to switch in, swap out, switch in, swap out. I don't really stay with Indeedee, I just use Indeedee for terrain control. So for me, it would be wasted to run Psychic Seed if I plan to switch out immediately anyways. And I decided to run Rocky Helmet instead, because that way I can punish U-turn from Urshifu, I can punish Rillaboom, Incineroar, Urshifu Rapid Strike, or Iron Hands, because if you bring Calyrex-Ice Torkoal and then Smeargle and Indeedee, Terra Water Iron Hands can get a little stressful, but with Rocky Helmet, since Hands has to attack 2 times or maybe sometimes 3 times into Indeedee, you get more than 30% damage on the Iron Hands just because of Indeedee. And that's why I really fell in love with Rocky Helmet. And Terra Fairy was a choice that wasn't really necessary, because nobody of us played against Regidrago. But I thought, wait, we have no Wild Guard on Smeargle, we have no Dragon Resist, we need Terra Fairy on Indeedee. Also helps out if Miraidon locks itself into Draco Meteor, because as I said, we have no Dragon Resist. And that's why Terra Fairy and Indeedee can help out a little bit on that side. Also helps against Urshifu Single Strike to break the sash and not die immediately. I never used Terra Fairy and Indeedee in the tournament, but I would still keep it. Terra Dragon can also come up, because Ogerpon Half-Flame is a little annoying if they can just one-hit KO you Indeedee with Terrafire Ivy Cudgel, and then the second Pokemon can get a move off on Calyrex, for example. But other than that, Terra Fairy is just overall a little better. The spread is good to survive. I think it was 188 Adamant, Mystic Water, Terra Water, Searching Strikes from Urshifu, because 188 Adamant is the point where you one-hit KO Cornerstone without Terra Water, and that's why we went 244 instead of 252, because it didn't change that kind of roll. But the 12 special defense changed the roll from, I think, Timid Miraidon with max special attack has a 50% chance to one-hit KO Indeedee with Draco Meteor. And since some players also ran Modest but a way less special attack than originally, you can also survive that a little bit better. But why did I use 96 speed? In my eyes, most of the time you are in Trick Room, so you should figure out what your speed order should be in Trick Room. And I thought about it, and I was pretty sure that I want Urshifu to move before Raging Bolt, because let's say there is a Pokemon with Protect, let's say 50% Ogerpon Half-Flame. Then I can use Close Combat Thunderbolt into the Half-Flame, and if they stay, the Thunderbolt gets redirected, and if they switch, I get the double up on the switch in. But let's say Raging Bolt would be faster than Urshifu, and they click Spiky Shield. Then Ogerpon kinda absorbs the T-Bolt, and then the CC would KO the Ogerpon. But that's why I thought it is important for Urshifu to outspeed Raging Bolt. So that's why our Urshifu has 92 speed, our Raging Bolt has 95, and our Indeedee is 96, because same thing. You usually want the most damage to move first, and that's why Raging Bolt should move before Indeedee. And I also gain valuable information, because there are some Pokemon running around 90-ish speed, that if my Indeedee outspeeds something, my Raging Bolt does as well, and vice versa, right? And that's why I decided to just be 1 point faster than Raging Bolt. There's nothing more to it, really. Psychic was really good to just threaten your opponent a little bit. Dazzling Gleam and Alluring Voice are nice to hit Urshifu Single Strike and Chiempao with. I also played against, I think, 2 or 3 Chiempao, but I never needed Alluring Voice, and Psychic was really nice to get a little more damage into something like Ogerpon Cornerstone. You can also break the substitute in Psychic terrain from Terrapagos if they don't have any boosts, and yeah. Also, against Terrapagos teams, since I always bring Indeedee Urshifu into those, you are usually not in Trick Room, so I wanted Indeedee to move before Urshifu so that I can break the substitute with Psychic and then follow up with Close Combat. And if we are in Trick Room, they hopefully don't have a sub, so you can double with CC into Psychic, and then the Psychic gets redirected again, you know the drill. So that is really, really nice. Yeah, Indeedee was one of the MVPs for sure. Blocking priorities helps a ton, mainly Fake Out, but also blocking Thunderclap into Torkoal, for example, Aqua Jet into Terrifire Ice Rider, a Sucker Punch from Chiempao, or Single Strike. And overall, I am really, really happy with this Indeedee. I understand why people want not Terra, but Psychic Seed, because it makes the matchup into the special restricted a little better, but I feel like the matchup into Shadow Rider and Kyogre and Miraidon is good regardless, so I would just keep it as it is. Next up is Smeargle, and Smeargle with max speed is a really good Pokemon because players, more often than you think, they clicked Fake Out into my Smeargle, and then my Fake Out came off first, they Fake Out into my Smeargle, I don't flinch, and then my Calyrex, for example, can move because they Fake Out at my Smeargle. And that worked out quite often, and the problem is if you run min speed Smeargle, having the slower Fake Out against Incineroar and Rillaboom every single time is really bad. And the kinda conga line, that's how it is called, it is Fake Out, Trick Room, Decorate, Glacial Lands. It never came up for me. Maybe it could have come up once or twice, but I think the faster Smeargle carried me a ton. Because that way you can also get off a Decorate before your Smeargle dies, and when you set up Trick Room, you can go for Decorate, Trick Room, and then just sweep with Calyrex-Ice. And the bulk is really good to survive with Searching Strikes and Rain if you go Terra Grass. But the main reason why we ran max speed outside of the whole Trick Room, or like not Trick Room, but Fake Out interaction, you can also outspeed a lot of Urshifu Rapid Strike that decided to run more bulk nowadays, and you can get a fast Spore off into Rapid Strike, which is one of the more annoying Pokemon. You only have like Indeedee, Bolt, and Torkoal, but sometimes they are tough to position, especially if the opponent has Taunt Urshifu. You want your Smeargle to outspeed the Urshifu and go for Spore before they can go for Taunt. Same thing against something like Covered Cloak Chio, for example. You want to go for Spore before they can go for Taunt. Yeah, Terra Grass, you don't necessarily need Terra Ghost because you have a faster Fake Out and you have Psychic Terrain to block it as well. And with Terra Grass, you can make sure that you can redirect Spores from something like Boot Bonnet, I guess, or Among Us. You survive Searching Strikes, and you can also be immune to Rage Powder and get a Decorate off that way. So overall, Terra Grass just the best choice. But why did we want Technician? Technician is super good for one kind of scenario that came up really often. You can Fake Out Urshifu Rapid Strike, and you will always do enough damage that they don't recover their Focus Sash with Grassy Terrain, because they can only recover 11 HP with Grassy Terrain if they have 4 HP EVs, and Fake Out Technician always does 12 HP. So that means that after Fake Out and Grassy Terrain recovery, they are still not full life with the Urshifu Rapid Strike. Same thing with Urshifu Single Strike, they have the same bulk, and it came up quite often, so I'm really happy with the choice. And own tempo, yes, sometimes you get intimidated by Incineroar, but Technician and own tempo are basically same damage, and getting confused is just super unlikely. Hurricane Tornadus, Hurricane Pelipper are the only two relevant ones that come into my mind, but since it never happened, I think Technician over the course of the tournament, I dealt more damage because of Technician than you might think. So yeah, Spore is an obvious choice because with a fast Spore and Calyrex-Ice, you can get some nasty boards, because if they go Terra Grass to block the Spore, you have a super effective Glacial Lance. So yeah, Follow Me is obvious, Fake Out is obvious. yeah, Smeargle, I hate that Pokemon, but I think Decorate Smeargle is fine because it just doesn't purely rely on mind games. Does he click Protect? Does he click Spore? You know, I think Decorate Smeargle is a lot more fun to play against and to play with. Next up is Raging Bolt. At Safety Goals, Raging Bolt is just so good into stuff like Kyogre Amoonguss. Kyogre Amoonguss is an annoying board because if you set up Trick Room, Amoonguss outspeeds Calyrex-Ice, can go for Spore, and getting rid of Kyogre is really tough with Calyrex-Ice and Torkoal. And for the Urshifu, they also have something like Amoonguss or just Fake Out, or getting Urshifu in position is super, super tough. And that's where Safety Goals Raging Bolt helps, because Safety Goals Raging Bolt is immune to Spore and Rage Powder, which is sweet. And it's a Pokemon that can punish all these pesky water types, because Calyrex-Ice and Torkoal both struggle into water types. And Raging Bolt can help with those. Terra Electric to boost up the damage even further, and you have a really good typing with Mono Electric against Kyogre and Sun. You don't have an Ice Beam weakness, and you can resist Origin Pulse kinda if you set up the Sun. And with Raging Bolt, the cool part is that it also works outside of Trick Room, because it's the speed is alright, and you can also go for some nasty things like Terra Electric Thunderclap. So let's say Trick Room is up and you have Torkoal Raging Bolt, then Torkoal is just amazing. And if Trick Room is not up, you have still something like Terra Electric Thunderclap. And Raging Bolt is also a Pokemon that really appreciates Decorate support from Smeargle, and yeah, it was one of the best Pokemon. The spread, since I wanted it to be faster than Urshifu, there are only 2 speed stats that Raging Bolt can have. It's either 95, or if you don't bottle cap it and keep it as you have caught it, you have 90. I guess if you want quiet, you can also have 81 or 85. But I really wanted Bolt to be faster than Urshifu. So the only way to do that was to play Modest with 31 IVs. And that's why we ran not min speed Raging Bolt. And the spread is really good because sometimes you can bring Raging Bolt against stuff like Terra Water Ice Rider. And then you survive a Glacial Lance from Ice Rider, you survive an Jolly Icicle Crash from Pow, as well as an Adamant Ice Spinner from Pow. This is why we ran 60 defense instead of just max HP on the Raging Bolt. And Raging Bolt was definitely one of the MVPs. I played against a ton of Kyogre, I think 5 Kyogre in total, and this is where Raging Bolt can really shine. And I'm really happy that I used that kind of Pokemon on that slot. Next up is Urshifu. Urshifu is a Pokemon that you really want to use on a hard Trick Room team, I think, because you want to maximize your Trick Room turns, and hitting through Protect is a way to do so. I gotta say, I bought Urshifu the least amount, but it makes sure that some of the tough matchups are not tough anymore. For example, Dondozo. If your only way to hit Dondozo is Raging Bolt, you did something wrong. And Urshifu just makes that matchup so incredibly free. Urshifu also helps into Shadow Rider a ton. And just as I said in general, hitting through Protect is amazing. We decided to run Terra Grass because we wanted a defensive Terra. Terra Dark is not a defensive Terra. I know it's just fun to spam Terra Dark Wicked Blow, but being immune to Spore and Rage Powder, as well as not being weak to Fighting and Fairy anymore, and resisting Surging Strikes, just felt really, really good overall. The spread, as you can see, we ran 2 IVs. There are 2 reasons for it. Brian only had 2 IV Urshifu, so he gave it to me with 2 IVs, but I wanted to use 2 IVs anyways, because if you run min speed Urshifu, you probably run into a speed tie if you play against opposing min speed Urshifu. But if we run 2 speed and if we run into a mirror match we know for a fact that our Urshifu is faster. At least it should be. And that's why 92 speed was actually better than 91. Yeah, the bulk, we are not running just max HP and 4 SpDef. Instead, we are running 36 SpDef to survive. I think it was Draco Meteor from Raging Bolt, from 180 modest Raging Bolt, AV Raging Bolt with a ton of special tech, kinda. And we also survive Ice Beam from Kyogre if we go Terra Grass. And we also survive 2 Pollen Puffs from Amoonguss if we go Terra Grass, as well as 1 Sludge Bomb plus 2 Poison Ticks if we go Terra Grass with our Urshifu in front of an Amoonguss. Iron Head, I never clicked it. I think U-Turn is also a good option, but Iron Head is just really sweet to hit Fairy types with. Mainly Terra Fairy Ice Rider could have been an issue otherwise, but other than that, you barely click Iron Head. And Sucker Punch, the interesting part is I ran 6 Sucker Punch PP. If you are asking why I ran 6 PP on Sucker Punch with my Choice Band Urshifu, I really recommend reading my World's team report from 2023, because I ran 6 Sucker Punch PP on my Choice Band Dragapult back then, and there's a reason for it why you should not run 7 or 8 Sucker Punch PP. I will link that in the description below, so you can also feel free to read that. But yeah, Urshifu, just really good Pokemon to patch up some matchups, and also just hitting for Protect is kind of cheating. And then Torkoal, obviously it's Torkoal. Choice specs instead of Charcoal. I was getting asked why not run Charcoal on the Torkoal. The damage output is important, because otherwise if you run Charcoal, I think you cannot KO Cornerstone, Terra Rock with the Embody aspect. You cannot KO it with Eruption and Glacial Lance, but with Choice specs you can. Also the extra damage on Ice Rider, for example, and in general the extra damage on hands. I think extra damage is a big thing here, and I totally recommend running Choice specs, because that way you can also run a single target fire type move with Weather Ball and Earth Power at the same time, because if you run something like Charcoal Protect, you have to drop one of the slots, and that is just not doable. Min speed to make sure that you have one Pokemon that can at least underspeed Amoonguss, which means outspeeding it in Trick Room. But yeah, that's the Torkoal on the team. The interesting part about Torkoal is that sometimes you just use it as a pawn's sacrifice, because against Kyogre it's just really important to get the Sun up, and then a bolt of Calyrex-Ice and Raging Bolt. Did I say a bolt? A board of Calyrex-Ice and Raging Bolt, because then you just win the game on spot. You can also use Torkoal if they don't KO it to just threaten your opponent in Trick Room. So that's why Torkoal is sometimes not used as this breaker and as this winning Pokemon. Sometimes it's really just used as a sacrifice to get the board position you want, like Urshifu Bolt or Urshifu Kelly, Bolt Kelly, all of that stuff. And that's why you don't have to be careful with Torkoal. You should still be careful, but you can be a little more reckless with it. And yeah, matchup wise, you have a ton of really good matchups. Against our Bega, for example, you should not lead with Indeedee, because you want to win the terrain war later on. You should always lead with Calyrex and Smeargle, and you bring Indeedee Torkoal in the bag, and you win pretty much every time. They have to lead Furry Giraffe, and then if you go for Trick Room, go for Trick Room themselves. But if they click Trick Room and you don't click Trick Room but Glacial Lance instead, you just win the game on the spot. So I would say Miraidon in general is quite easy. Against Kyogre, I recommend watching my top 8 set against Kyogre. It was not my best set, but Calyrex-Ice and Raging Bolt are really important there, as well as Torkoal. And then the last slot could be anything. Could be Smeargle, could be Indeedee, could be Urshifu. I think Indeedee is the best choice against Kyogre balance. But against Kyogre Hyper Offense, you want to bring Urshifu, because when you just spam Glacial Lance, Wicked Blow, Glacial Lance, Wicked Blow, Glacial Lance, Wicked Blow, and Trick Room, and you win. But against Balance, you want to have the immunity to Fake Out from Incineroar and Rillaboom. So this is where Indeedee comes in. Next up, against Shadow Rider. Against Shadow Rider, it's also dependent on the matchup, but most of the time you can just do Smeargle, Calyrex-Ice, and Indeedee Urshifu in the back. Torkoal is also really good most of the time. You don't bring Raging Bolt there, but if you want Torkoal, you either bench both supporters, which you shouldn't do because I don't like Calyrex Raging Bolt as a lead, or you just run it with one supporter and then Urshifu and Torkoal in the back. And against Shadow Rider, you can do something like a Queen's Sacrifice, which means that you just toss your Calyrex to get the board of Torkoal Urshifu, and then you just spam Eruption, Wicked Blow, and win the game. So that's also a really, really good option. So I would say Shadow Rider is also quite good. Next up, we've got, so we talked about Kyogre, we talked about Shadow Rider. Against opposing Ice Rider teams, it's annoying because they can always reverse your Trick Room. Terra Water Ice Rider is just super hard to deal with because your only way are Urshifu and Raging Bolt, and both are just faster and Trick Room than most of the teams. And I think, so I think Raging Bolt is just not an amazing bring into Terra Water Ice Rider because they can just redirect the moves with something like Ogre-Pon Cornerstone or Ogre-Pon Half-Flame. And since opposing Ice Rider teams also have Taunt Urshifu on it most of the time, it's just really, really hard to play against. It is definitely winnable, but you have to play it really well, especially if they have Cornerstone. It gets even trickier because if you lead Calyrex Smeargle and you fake out Glacial Lance and they just Spiky Shield, you lose a lot of momentum. But if you click Follow Me and they attack, you also lose a lot of momentum. It's not easy, but you can win against Ice Rider nonetheless. Against Zamazenta, you have to use your Raging Bolt well because you can force a Terra early on the Amoonguss with Terra Water, or maybe on the Zama with Terra Dragon. But if a Terra rolls, Raging Bolt just wins the game. And that's why I really recommend leading Calyrex and Smeargle and bring Raging Bolt Torkoal in the back. That's a line that works really, really well into Zamazenta stuff. At least into the most common Zamazenta stuff. Next up, there is, we talked about both horses, Kyogre, Terrapagos. Against Terrapagos, this is where Max Speed Smeargle also came in clutch because we had the faster fake out, we could spore, we could decorate before they can remove the Smeargle. So I really liked Calyrex Smeargle as a lead, Indeedee, because they have both Rillaboom and Instant again, and Urshifu as the last to have another Pokemon that can hit through Protect and threaten a KO on Terrestrialized Terrapagos. So these four are just really strong into that. Against Koraidon, Rocky Helmet Indeedee is nice. In general, Terrafire Ice Rider farms Koraidon. You just have to position a Trick Room and have Urshifu in the back. So I really liked Indeedee Calyrex as a lead, and then Urshifu and Raging Bolt in the back. You can also lead with Smeargle Calyrex and bring Indeedee Urshifu in the back. You just want to spam Glacial Lance Wicked Blow most of the time against Koraidon teams. Pretty much same thing against Groudon teams as well. And then I guess there's still Eternatus and Zacian. Against Eternatus, you just have a good matchup because you have a super effective stab move with Glacial Lance, and you can also crit against it with Urshifu if they have a Cosmic Power Stall set. And Decorate also helps out a ton against these stall matchups because you can just go +2 yourself and then outpace them that way. So against Eternatus, Calyrex, Smeargle, Urshifu is my go-to, and then most of the time Indeedee in the bag. Depends on their Terras, depends on the rest of the team, but that's my usual go-to. And against Zacian, you have a really good matchup as well because everything you need to do is just Follow Me, Trick Room, and then Eruption Glacier Lands. And all the Zacian teams don't have anything for it. Even if they go Terra Water with Zacian, you can go Terra Fire with your Calyrex-Ice, and they have no way to hit Calyrex-Ice and Torkoal with. And if they have a different Terra, they cannot survive the double up. So Torkoal, Calyrex-Ice should be your goal to get that board in Trick Room against Zacian teams. And that being said, am I still missing relevant restricted? Yeah, Lunala, I guess. Lunala, I think you against Lunala Balance, you play it like I did. I played 5 games against Eric. No, I played 6 games against him. The Swiss stage was a 1 and 2, and the finals was a 2 and 1. So I played 6 games against him, and it should always be Smeargle, Calyrex-Ice, Torkoal, Indeedee, because that gives you the most wiggle room. So I would say every matchup is playable. Cornerstone in general is an annoying Pokemon. I gotta say, something like Pelipper can also be stressful if you don't bring Raging Bolt. But overall, I'm really happy with how this team plays. If you want to use it yourself, let me know down in the comments below so that I see how many of you are actually now picking up Hard Trick Room because of my regional one. If you have any questions to the team or any suggestions on what you want to change, feel free to ask me in the comments below. And yeah, I talked about the good matchups, about the bad matchups, about all the spreads. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.